Let's get ready to ramble! It's time for Raccoon Rambles. We're gonna go outside, we're gonna feed some super fun raccoons, and we're also gonna talk tonight about a very specific theme. We're gonna talk about imagining your life like you're the hero in a movie. Why? This is a very comforting perspective when we're taking life too seriously. It also helps us be at peace that everybody has a role to play, just like in a movie. And also, Course in Miracles says our best tool for changing the world is to change our mind about the world, because thought is the creative level of creation. So this can be a very therapeutic and healing perspective to just view your life like a movie. We're going to talk all about it. Shakespeare said all the world's a stage. All of us play many different roles. We have our entrances and exits. And a lot of other wise people in human history have talked about this concept and encouraged us to look at life this way. So we're going to feed some super cute raccoons, and we're going to dive into it. Let's get ready to ramble. Time for Raccoon Rambles. Only thing missing right now is raccoons. I don't really see a whole lot of them. They just took off a second ago. All right, but I know how to get them. Here's a little trick I figured out. Free peanuts. I should get them here in any minute now. Come, oh yeah, you heard that? You heard the free peanuts thing? What about you? Did you hear it? Come on. There we go. Works every time. So before we talk about how life is actually like a movie, it's important for us to get on page and get motivated for that concept by realizing the benefits of looking at life that way. So first of all, it's going to give us greater patience. In the same way in a movie, you know, when the plot twists and there's challenges against the main character, we have patience. We're waiting to see how it's all going to work out. And if we can predict how it's going to work out, it's not a very exciting movie, is it? Same thing with our life. If we can predict how all the bad things are eventually going to work out, it wouldn't make our life as exciting. We'd be bored with it, just like a boring, predictable movie. The other thing is it lowers the pressure and lowers the attachment. So we can live with a healthier sense of detachment when we're getting too worldly and too life-obsessed. Another thing is that it helps us with a greater acceptance of life's challenges and healthier detachment to all the ups and downs of life. Now, a number of very wise people told us to look at life like a movie. Epictetus said, we're all characters in a play. The Rishis, Hinduism, they say that this is a divine Leela, God's play. And Paramahansa Yogananda talked about this being a divine drama. Okay, I wrote down this quote from Yogananda because I don't want to misquote him, because he just has such a perfect way of saying this. Yogananda says, we must not take our earthly experiences too seriously, for they are nothing but a series of vast dream movies shown to us to entertain us. The Heavenly Father meant to entertain and educate us, his immortal children, with a variety of dream movies. We must behold comedies, tragedies, and newsreels of life movies with an entertained, joyous attitude and learn from them without being overcome by their emotional impact. Powerful quote from Yogananda. I've got an even better quote that's mind-blowing that I'm going to share towards the end. Now let's talk about how life is like a movie. Have you ever noticed when you're watching a movie on TV or anything else, if you go really close to the screen, it's just little pixels of light. It's all just little pixels when we're watching a movie, if you get close enough. But in this reality, if you get close enough to anything with a microscope, you will see that it's all just 3D pixels. It's molecules. Everything is made up of molecules. That's the substrate for this reality. It's not really as real as it looks. You know, the actual amount of matter here, they say is like the equivalent of a baseball inside a ballpark. The rest is just empty space, but it looks very real because it's all vibrating. In the same way that a propeller on an airplane looks like a disc because it's moving so fast. This vibration of the molecules gives the illusion of a physical reality when it's much, much more just empty space. So that's something to think about. So all these molecules, it's a convenient mirage that helps us function. Because if we saw reality as it really is, it would just be buzzing electrons and you'd probably get hit by a bus before you know it. Another thing is that, you know, movies are real to two of our senses, sight and sound, okay? Real life is real to five senses, sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. The difference is only a matter of degree. That's it. And we know that the senses don't pick up of all of what's in reality. We can't see everything that's going on in reality. We can't see like radio waves and different things. There's certain sounds we can't hear. So we're only getting a portion of reality fed to us through the senses. Now the other thing is, in this reality, everything is structurally evanescent, like in a dream. It's all ashes to ashes, dust to dust, isn't it? It is. I try to look at reality with like an imaginary pair of shades and see the impermanence of everything. You know, this chair I'm sitting on, 1,000 years from now, it's going to be dust. These raccoons are going to be dust. This wooden structure is going to be dust. I hear some coyotes in the background. You might hear them too. They will also be dust. Elf is going to be dust. Gonzo, oh man, Gonzo fell. Gonzo is going to be dust. Everything changes, everything's falling apart, just like in a movie, it all just disappears from the screen. Where's all the people from 200,000 years ago? You know? The other thing is there's a cast of characters, just like in a movie. This movie right now has a funny cast of wild animals. You're the hero in your life story, but I bet there's villains in your life. Who are the villains? I bet there's other heroes in your life. Who are the heroes? Who are the guides in your life? Who is the supporting cast? Think about that. How can you increase your exposure to the heroes, the guides, and the supporting cast? And how can you protect yourself from the villains? And the whole thing is that on this stage of life, there's a cast change about every 100 years as people exit, the director calls cut, people's lives end, and they exit and go backstage from whence they came. There's a cast change about every 100, 150 years as people get old and die. It's like we all assembled from backstage. Birth was not the beginning of us. Just ask any mother. All the children seem to come with already these preformed tendencies, and their consciousness already has some development. It's not like they're a completely blank slate. Also, a concept that's important to consider. Everything here is changing, but change requires a changeless backdrop, the ultimate reality. Yogananda said that if we could see behind this curtain, we'd realize that this reality is a lot more like a puppet show. What's going on? And think about that. I think about how it's like a puppet show. You know, my conscience can be like pulling the puppet strings to get me to say and do certain things. You know, let me know when I've gone wrong, let me know when I've gone right. I'm kind of a puppet to my conscience and intuition. Are you? Do you feel that way sometimes? Now, Einstein, one of the smartest guys, that scientist with the funny hair, he once said that space looks suspicious because everything comes out of it and everything disappears back into it. But also there's something really cool called the observer effect, where some molecules don't come into existence until we look at them. Till you look at something, it comes into existence. Very mysterious. It suggests that there's a backstage here. And it also suggests that I got a little raccoon on my back here. Are you going to come and get it? There you go. Just like a movie, it's almost like there was a projection booth that started the whole show. In the creation story, it was like, let there be light. Well, that's kind of like the beam of light coming from a projection booth in a movie theater, isn't it? And then, you know, what we're seeing and experiencing is really like the screen, because all this light is just activating neurons, and our imagination and our mind is constructing this reality and giving it its image. Our consciousness is really the screen. And there was a beam of light that apparently started it all off, if you follow the creation story. Now here's something I want to ask you. How are the scenes of our life kind of like movie scenes? Have you noticed that in all of history there's very recurring themes that keep playing over? Love and loss, fear, tragedy, silliness, greed and regret. You know, there are a finite number of themes that play out in the scenes of human life. And you know what's the funny thing too? It's almost like we're challenged to get the lines right. It's like we show up into the scenes of our life, and if we don't learn the lessons, we end up in similar scenes, similar situations, and we suffer the consequences of our unlearned lessons over and over and over again until we finally figure it out. It makes me think of Michael J. Fox in the movie Back to the Future. He struggles with pride. So he gets called chicken, and that gets him to retaliate. And he gets put in that situation a couple times until he finally learns that lesson. It's just like us. Like sometimes we keep ending up, you know, in toxic relationships until we finally learn to respect ourselves and set healthy boundaries. You know, we can be a doormat and people will take advantage of us. It's the same situation, same type of scene, just different people, till we learn to stand up for ourselves. Sometimes we have to put up with incompetent people until we learn to see their innocence and we learn patience and tolerance. We'll be tested in many different scenes of our life till we get it right. But it does seem like the scenes of our life are designed just for us, to challenge us, because we're capable of handling the challenges, until we learn the lessons we need to learn to self-realize. But sometimes you get the lines just right in a scene. You know, there's a story from Francis of Assisi's life. He had an eye issue, and back in that day they would take a hot poker and sear the sides of your face, you know, as the medical treatment, which seems very barbaric now. But anyway, they're getting ready. They know this is going to be very painful. And Francis of Assisi's just like, "Brother Fire, I have always loved and respected you. Please be gentle with me now." A beautiful line. And you know what? Apparently he didn't feel the burn of the fire. He nailed it. Paramahansa Yogananda was once giving a speech at the Biltmore Hotel. He was finishing the speech with a poem called My India. As he gave the last line in the poem, he just fell and transitioned out of his body. perfect ending to his life. Nailed that final line and that exit scene. Love it. Sometimes people get those lines just right. It's always very fun. Have you ever got the line just right in a scene in your life? Let me know about it. Throw it into the comments. I'd love to hear about it. I'm getting tapped on the shoulder. Oh, hello, sweetheart. This little one hangs out behind me sometimes and just taps my shoulder. It's really cute. She's got it figured out. She's got me trained. Okay, so what are the success strategies moving forward if life is like a movie? I think number one is live with healthy detachment. Hey, come here. Live with healthy detachment. So, one of the ways we could do that is don't collect too many props. Don't be so obsessed with collecting props. You can't take them backstage. People collect cars and homes and everything else, and it's like, you know, you got to give that stuff back, right? You can't take it all backstage. Like, let's focus on performing well in our scenes of life instead. When things get really bad in life, just remind yourself of the unreality of this reality. Just be like, you know, Jesus did this. Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. He basically said, don't take this reality too seriously. Also, once Yogananda prayed to God, you know, about all the tragedies and everything in life, and it's painful, and he claims that God said back to him, you know, I remind you every night when you dream, I remind you how unreal this reality is. Think about that. When you're dreaming at night, you forget about this reality back here. That's how fleeting this reality is. We totally forget it. A dream feels real when we're in it until we wake up to a greater reality than that. Isn't it possible that could happen with us? This feels real, like a dream, until we wake up to a greater reality before and beyond this one, backstage where we came from. Something to think about. I like the idea of dreaming half awake. Yogananda says, you know, play out your human part with the awareness of a divine being. Dream half awake, and that can help us to stand unshaken against the breaking apart of worlds and play our role heroically. We got to remember, as Ram Dass says, we're too involved in this play to remember it's just a play. Have you ever been at a movie and you get so absorbed in it that you suffer along with the main character? You really feel what they're going through, you feel the tragedies and everything else, and you're really identifying with it, and then at the end of the movie the lights come on and everything else, and you're like, oh yeah, it's just a movie, and you're okay again. That's how we need to live life. We need to remember it's just a dream movie, it's just a divine drama. We need to remember it's not as real compared to all of reality. Now, some people might argue that. And they might say, well, it is real. The pain is real. You know what? If you hit your head in a dream, you experience dream head pain. So yeah, unreality has its own reality. Let's not give reality to nightmares. Let's dream half awake and remember that this is just a divine drama when things get tough. But across all eternity, I mean, everything in this world isn't really lasting and real, but you are. Your consciousness is. Another attitude that might help us is to trust the divine producer. You know, a lot of us can't grasp the meaning of suffering and the plot twists and turns and subplots of our life. And we can't grasp it, and it doesn't make sense, and we may not trust God, the universe, and everything else. Well, let me tell you this. If you could grasp it all, as Yogananda says, it wouldn't say much for the skill of the divine dramatist, the divine director. We need to embrace those mysteries that as part of the excitement of what's going on. We also need to be patient and wait till the end, just like when watching a movie. We need to wait till the end. And if it's not a good ending, it's not the end. And for those who believe in reincarnation, you know what I mean. And when we can, it helps to follow the will of the divine producer instead of going off script. Look for signs. Instead of living by our desires and urges on what we want to happen, try to pay attention to what's trying to happen in our lives. One time I had an experience that didn't make much sense to me. I was meeting up with a client and we were going for a nature walk, and there was snow and ice. We're walking along and I fall through the snow and ice into a stream and I get soaked. And I get out of it and I'm frozen. My legs are completely frozen. I've got ice chunks immediately forming. And I had a moment where I just reflected to God and I said, please help me understand the meaning of this. This was at the beginning of our walk. I was frozen for the rest of our walk. I didn't understand the meaning of this. We couldn't have seen it because the ground was plain flat white with the snow and ice, and I fell through into the stream. Well, a couple days later, I go for a walk to the same area with somebody, and I see an elderly couple way up ahead, and they walk and they see the hole where I fell in, and they stop from proceeding forward, and then they turn and take a different route. And I thought, thank you, divine producer, because I would gladly take that fall for them because I'd be able to handle the freezing cold of falling into a stream in the winter better than those poor elderly people. I'm happy to take one for the team and take one for them. Thank you for revealing that to me. So I just asked the divine producer, help me understand the meaning of my suffering, and somehow it all worked out. I'd encourage you to do the same. Appeal to the producer. Hey, can you help me understand this a little bit so I can play along a little better? Another thing is, really consider yourself the hero of your life story. Figure out who you are and play that role very well. As Heraclitus says, character is fate. As Dolly Parton says, figure out who you are, then do it on purpose. Okay? So it might be helpful to create a to-be list for who you want to be in life. Think about who you want to role model, and then stay on script. Think about what kind of person you want to be remembered for being, and then stay on script. Really own your role. Don't take the play too seriously, but take your performance in it very seriously. You know, in all of human history, you're the only you. You're the only one that can play you in the scenes of your life and touch the lives that are around you in the way that only you can. We're all like a different finger on the hand of God, and we all have a different purpose and role. So I'd encourage you to just understand yourself, figure out who you are, and play you well because nobody else can do it. As Oscar Wilde says, be yourself because everybody else is taken. So I'm just going to be the dude that hangs out with a small army of raccoons and talks mental toughness, I guess. Also, really, imagine living your life like everything you say others can hear. Everybody can see you at every moment. You're playing to an invisible audience. Whenever you do something good and no one's around, just imagine a choir of angels singing for you. Imagine your deceased loved ones cheering for you on the other side as you show up to the scenes of your life. And they're encouraging you to play out those scenes heroically. Really imagine playing to the invisible audience. And just like in a movie, there's always character development. Usually the hero starts off struggling with self-doubt. They're a little bit of a coward, okay? And then they find their courage, and that's when they have a breakthrough. They embrace the call to adventure, and then they achieve their goal, and then they return back. And I think the same is true for all of us. We really want to focus on that character development in order to be able to find our courage and overcome self-doubt. Really focus on developing your character. There's not as much fun when you play that character at a weak level as often heroes are at the beginning of a movie. Let's develop faster. Let's get to the good stuff sooner. Let's focus on the right mental attitude for life's ups and downs and play our role heroically. And let's learn from our experiences and come into our glory sooner. You know, Yogananda said, real life is the original motion picture. Real life is the original motion picture. Okay, and that these are all just dream movies that are here to educate and entertain us, but how few of us are educated or entertained by it. You know, a lot of God's performances here in the human story are comedies, but we're too afraid to laugh at the silliness of life. Okay, so I have a quote here from Yogananda that really sums this up, and I thought he was the best at communicating this idea of viewing your life like a movie. And so I've referenced him a lot with this topic, and this was one of my favorite quotes by him. I wrote it down because I want to make sure I get this right. Yogananda says, "Accept life as a motion picture. We are both viewers and actors through the roles we play, demonstrating the wisdom we have gained in our lives. How many adventure stories we live through, how many thrillers, how many sweet stories, balanced by horror movies. Nothing in life is real in itself. Learn to look upon whatever happens to you as if nothing can touch your inner soul. Accept every challenge in your life. Have a calm inner detachment. Entertain with style. Play heroically when something goes wrong in your life. Patiently endure. Seek methods to rise above every test that is given to you." Paramahansa Yogananda in the book Whispers from Eternity. I think he nailed it. I think he said in that one quote what I've been trying to say in this entire ramble. So here's a challenge. In your upcoming week, wake up and imagine the hero in your life story is waking up. Show up to the scenes of your life. Decide what kind of person you want to be. Think about the priorities that matter to you. Maybe you want to sprinkle love and wisdom wherever you go. Maybe you want to uplift other people and help them believe in themselves. Maybe you want to help people be more in love with nature. Whatever it is, really get clear on the priorities that speak to your soul. And then just assess your performance. You can do an examines process of self-introspection. See how you're performing in the scenes of your life. And then, you know, you get a chance to redo a lot of those scenes if you don't get it right the first time. If you don't learn your lessons, those lessons come back to you. Might be different people in different places, but the lessons will come back until we get the lines right. Karma is just unlearned lessons. I got some out of food karma I'm dealing with right now. We're going to see how this goes. So, whoever you are and wherever you are, I'm rooting for you in your story. I'd love to hear all about it someday. I really am a big fan of the unsung heroes in society that are quietly fighting those difficult battles. You know what I'm talking about. And, you know, I know it's not like a parade shows up at your door with bells and whistles and celebrating you and making you popular and putting you on the front of magazines or anything like that. But you and your story matter. And you have an audience bigger than you know. And some souls incarnated here in this part of the universe, in this time, simply because you're here and only you can touch them and affect them in the way that only you can, when you develop your character and you grow into your heroic greatness. Let's all engage in that journey towards our character development to play out our lives heroically. You were sitting on that. I'm rooting for you in the human story.